"Move the truck," Patricia Crow said, in my driveway with a clipboard and that fixed smile. "You're blocking the easement." "My wife's in labor," I said, opening the passenger door. "We're going now." "Warnings don't pause," she said, tapping the paper. "Unapproved ramp, unauthorized lighting, tools visible from street." My wife's breath fogged the mirror. Short bursts. "Aaron, please." I stepped to pass her golf cart. Patricia slid sideways, braced. The radio on her belt hissed. "Back up," I said. "Address the violation." Wind chimes clinked. Sun hammered the hood. The air tasted like metal. My wife gripped the seat strap, knuckles paper white. "Patricia," I said, lower. "She's contracting now." Patricia touched the black plastic clip to her belt. "Don't ignore an officer of the association." "Officer?" I laughed, small, ugly. "You run a newsletter." The radio popped. Patricia's jaw clicked. She raised the taser like a TV remote. "Don't!" The air cracked, dry lightning in my yard. My wife screamed and folded into the door, the towel from the hospital bag skidding on the concrete. Ozone and burnt nylon filled my nose. The cul-de-sac held its breath. "You tased a pregnant woman," I said. "She obstructed a citation," Patricia said. Her hand shook. Curtains twitched. Sprinklers whispered. Somewhere, a dog stopped barking. I got my wife seated, buckled. "Breathe, babe. Stay with me." Patricia planted herself before the bumper. "Not until he signs acknowledgement." "Move," I said. Engine idling, heat on my neck, grit under my boots. I measured the tiny pulse in my wife's wrist. "Move." "Consequences?" Patricia said. Sirens floated from far off. I killed the engine and stepped forward. The taser hummed again. Warning. She wanted compliance more than decency. "Ben," I called, eyes on the blinds across the street. "Are you seeing this?" A shadow shifted. The slats parted. Ben Harlan's outline froze. One hand on the cord, the other pinching his collar as if it had tightened. "Record it," I said. Patricia squared to me. "This is between the board and a non-compliant resident. It's between you and accountability." I picked up the fallen towel. The singe mark was a hard oval, ugly as a stamp. Something clicked inside me. "What would you do if your neighbor weaponized the rules against your family?" I asked the quiet street, loud enough to reach every window. "This gets worse before it gets better. Stay with us and subscribe, because someone has to hold her to account." Let me back up and tell you how this started. 2 weeks earlier, an envelope with the red HOA crest arrived. Inside, non-conforming illumination. They meant the blue porch light. I meant my brother's name. After the funeral, I vowed to keep that blue burning. They told me to switch it off by Friday. The next letter hit the ramp. "Pending permit equals prohibited," Patricia wrote. "We built it because the OB warned of the preterm labor. My toolboxes became visual clutter." She photographed sawdust like graffiti. I tried to be a neighbor. I mowed. I painted the fence Patricia's approved beige, the color of a bandage. I fixed the community gate when it chewed key cards. The board's thank you email read like a threat. "Future work requires pre-clearance." That's when Ben knocked. County code enforcement. Careful man, careful shoes, careful words. He stood half on, half off the porch, as if loyalty were a line in the concrete. "They're talking about making an example," he said, voice low. "Minutes say they need a demonstration of authority. Over a light? Over control. Can you help?" He stared at the blue bulb and swallowed. "I have a job and a mortgage. So do I." He looked at the ramp, the grit tape catching the porch light, and lifted his heel, then set it down. He didn't step in, he didn't step away. "Document everything," he said finally. "Dates, photos, names. If they cross a line, outside authorities will care." Would they? If you make it impossible to ignore. The porch light buzzed, sprinklers ticked, streetlights made cones of silver dust. I felt the neighborhood watching, waiting for me to kneel or break. I chose to build a record. I started a log, time-stamped and photographed, daily, meticulously. I didn't sleep the night after the tasing. Every sound from the street made my pulse jump. The soft thud of sprinklers, a car door clicking shut, the hum of a drone camera someone had started flying lately. I sat at the kitchen table with the incident report half-typed on my laptop, replaying Patricia's voice in my head. Rules don't stop for emergencies. By morning, the HOA had already posted an official statement on the community app. They called it a misunderstanding during enforcement. I called it an assault. My wife couldn't stand long enough to shower. The doctor said stress might push her into premature labor. I took photos, every angle of the burn mark, the driveway, the towel. I added timestamps, saved backups, then walked out to the porch. The blue light still burned above the ramp, stubborn and calm. Ben crossed the street carrying a coffee he didn't seem to taste. He stopped halfway up my walk. "You okay?" he asked. "Define okay?" She's going to be all right. Physically, maybe." He shifted his weight, scanning the street like he expected Patricia to appear again. "The board's meeting tonight," he said. "They're already drafting a narrative." "A narrative? That you were aggressive? That she acted in self-defense?" The words tightened the air between us. I held up my phone. "I've got footage from my door cam." "Keep that off the group app," Ben said quickly. "If you post it there, they'll claim you violated privacy policy. They'll lock your account before anyone sees it." "Then what do I do?" He looked around again. "File external, county sheriff, civil rights desk if you have to." "You're in code enforcement. Help me." Ben's eyes flicked toward the HOA office down the street, then back to me. "You didn't hear it from me." He turned, coffee sloshing over his fingers, and left. Inside, my wife watched from the couch, a pillow under her stomach. "He's scared," she said. "Of what?" "Losing his house, same as us." The clock clicked through each minute like a nail being tapped. I opened the HOA bylaws folder I'd downloaded months ago and started reading. Every clause about use of security devices, resident conduct, emergency access. I didn't find tasers, but I found plenty of contradictions. One clause gave the board authority to enforce immediate compliance. Another required reasonable de-escalation before citation. I highlighted both. That was the first loose thread. By dusk, the neighborhood looked identical. Fresh lawns, flagpoles, kids on scooters. But I could feel the tension underneath it all. Patricia's house sat 3 doors down, blinds open, light slicing across her dining table, where papers lay in neat rows. She wanted everyone to see order being restored. At 7, cars lined the cul-de-sac for the emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, but sound carried through the vents of conformity. From my porch, I could hear fragments: liability, optics, non-compliance, and once, Patricia's voice, cool and deliberate. "If we let sentiment override policy, we lose governance." I recorded the audio on my phone. Every word felt like fuel. The baby kicked for the first time that night, sharp, defiant, and my wife smiled through tears. "She's fighting," she said. "So am I." When the meeting broke, Ben slipped out last, folder tucked under his arm. He paused at my mailbox, pretending to check his phone, then let a single sheet fall from the folder. The wind carried it halfway to my lawn before I caught it. Minutes. Confidential draft. Board recommends formal action against resident Aaron Miles for ongoing defiance and hostile engagement. Recommends security escalation to maintain control. I stared at the page until the letters blurred. They weren't stopping. They were doubling down. I knew then the HOA wasn't just enforcing rules. It was protecting itself. That meant records, emails, minutes, financials were my battleground. If I could prove misuse of authority, outside agencies would listen. The next morning, I logged into the HOA portal, disguised my request as a compliance inquiry, and downloaded every public document I could find. Most were routine budgets and maintenance logs. But in one PDF, under Community Safety Initiative, a line item. The red, taser purchase. 3 units, approved by President Patricia Crow, without board vote. That was the thread I'd pull. By the next board meeting, the neighborhood had gone silent. Lawns were perfect again. Cars parked 2 feet from the curb. Mailboxes polished like trophies. The calm felt staged, like everyone was holding their breath until Patricia gave permission to exhale. I walked the loop at dawn with my phone recording audio just in case. A single mockingbird cut through the hum of sprinklers. The air smelled of wet asphalt and fertilizer. Every driveway looked identical, except mine. The ramp, the blue light, the quiet rebellion. Ben was already outside, crouched by his trash bins in a pressed shirt and work badge. His eyes flicked toward Patricia's house before he spoke. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "Neither should you." He gave a strained smile. "You pulled the documents?" "All I could. The taser purchase, the safety fund transfers, some missing approvals. She'll say clerical error. Then we prove intent." Ben's jaw flexed. He adjusted his collar, a nervous tick, like the fabric was choking him. "Aaron, they can ruin you," he whispered. "They already tried." The garage door next door rolled up with a low mechanical growl. Patricia stepped out in her blazer, heels clicking like punctuation. She paused when she saw us. "Morning, gentlemen," she said. "Early start?" "Just trash day," Ben said quickly, too brightly. "Good citizen," she said. Her gaze slid to me. "And you, Mr. Miles, still pursuing your grievances?" "Still standing on my own property," I said. "For now." She smiled thinly, then clicked away toward her car. The smell of her perfume lingered, sharp, synthetic, like lemon over bleach. Ben exhaled through his nose. His hand shook as he lifted the bin lid. "She knows we talked." "So, talk louder," I said. "Quiet gets buried." Later that day, a letter came marked Final Notice. It demanded removal of the blue light to de-escalate tensions. I pinned it to the fridge under a magnet shaped like Texas. My wife read it twice. "They're baiting you," she said. "Good, maybe they'll slip." She took my hand, guiding it to her belly. "Don't give them more ammunition. They've already drawn blood." That night, I uploaded the taser invoice and meeting minutes to a private cloud folder. I sent Ben a link, encrypted, with a note, in case something happens. He didn't reply. The next morning, I found him on his porch, tie loose, eyes red. His trash cans were gone, taken or hidden. He looked like a man walking a tightrope over fire. "She called me in," he said. "HR review, conflict of interest." "Because of me? Because I didn't deny knowing you." He rubbed his temple. "Patricia's framing this as a neighborhood stability issue. She's saying you're destabilizing the board. I'm exposing them. To her, that's the same thing." A wind gust lifted the HOA flyer from his porch table, slapping it against his leg. He didn't move to catch it. "Aaron," he said quietly, "if I testify, if I say what I know, they'll fire me. If you don't, they'll keep doing this to the next family." He stared at the pavement, lips moving, but no sound coming out. His hand clenched, then released. He looked up finally, eyes glassy. "I have a daughter in braces," he said. "Mortgage, tuition, insurance. I can't lose this job." "Then don't do it for me," I said. "Do it for her." He looked away, throat bobbing. His fingers tapped against his mug, 3 beats, restless, guilty. When Patricia's car turned the corner, he flinched like a reflex and stepped back inside without another word. Her SUV idled as she scrolled her phone. When her eyes met mine, she smiled again, small, deliberate, triumphant. She rolled down the window. "You're recording, aren't you?" "Always." "Good. It'll save time when we file for harassment." The window slid up, sealing the threat like a lid. That night, I backed up every file again. Redundant drives, encrypted duplicates. Evidence couldn't mean anything if it disappeared. The next morning, Ben's house was dark. His blinds stayed closed, car missing. By noon, a for sale sign leaned against his mailbox, half driven into the grass. I stood there for a long minute, sunlight burning through the back of my neck. The neighborhood looked perfect again. Too perfect. If Ben was gone, I'd have to bring the outside authorities myself. That meant a chain of proof strong enough to drag the whole board into daylight. I went back inside, powered up my laptop, and started a new file. Willow Creek Evidence Log, Submission Draft. Step 1, collect signatures. Step 2, find where the money went. I spent the next 2 days tracing signatures. Every HOA approval, every check authorization, Patricia's initials were everywhere. Same swooping C, same ink, same pressure pattern. But one thing didn't add up. Half the forms she'd co-signed belonged to meetings she hadn't attended. The dates didn't match the minutes. At midnight, I zoomed in on one scanned PDF and saw it clearly. The digital timestamp predated the meeting by a full week. Someone had uploaded forged votes before the board even met. That was my entry point. The house was silent except for my wife's soft breathing in the next room. The baby monitor glowed faint green. I took a photo of the forgery, watermarked it, and added it to the log. Outside, the streetlights buzzed. A raccoon knocked a bin lid down the street. Every sound made me check the window. I sent the image to the county fraud tip line. No name attached. Then I texted Ben's number. Found forged votes, check your email. No reply. By morning, a new letter hung on my door. Notice of unsafe modification. Ramp removal required. Patricia's signature again, sharp and perfect. I called her number from the letterhead. She picked up on the first ring. "Good morning, Mr. Miles," she said. "You forged signatures." "Excuse me? I have proof." A pause, a click of tongue. "You're making dangerous accusations? So sue me." "Oh, we plan to." The line went dead. My hands trembled. I set the phone down and stared at the porch. The blue light hummed above, steady as heartbeat. That afternoon, an email pinged, community alert. Escalating harassment from resident Miles. Patricia had blasted the neighborhood list. She wrote that I'd been verbally aggressive, that I'd fabricated evidence to smear leadership. She even attached cropped screenshots of my complaint without the forged timestamps. The comments filled fast. "He's always been intense. Didn't he build that illegal ramp?" So sad about his wife, but rules are rules. I felt my face heat as I read. That's how control works. You make your target look unstable until truth sounds like madness. At dusk, I saw flashlights in Patricia's yard, 2 board members measuring fence lines, pretending to do inspections. They looked up and laughed when they caught me watching. I filmed everything, angles, timestamps, their laughter echoing through the night. The next morning, a sheriff's cruiser idled at the entrance to Willow Creek Estates. I slowed as I passed, expecting the officer to wave me down. He didn't. But that presence, Patricia had called them before I could. When I returned home, my wife met me at the door, one hand on her belly. "They said we're disturbing the peace," she said quietly. "Someone filed a complaint about noise." "Noise? We haven't even mowed." She handed me the paper. My name was listed under Resident of Concern. Patricia's signature again, bold and looping. I laughed once, short, disbelieving. "She's not even hiding it anymore." "Aaron," my wife said, "what if we leave? Then she wins. What if staying costs more?" I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled the folder labeled Evidence, and began compiling the next step. Cross-referencing HOA payments against bank deposits. Patricia's salary was public, but her security expenses weren't. The spreadsheet came alive with numbers, repeating transfers, circular authorizations. She was paying herself through shell reimbursements. That's what the forged signatures protected. By the time the sun dipped, I had enough to build a case. I emailed the entire packet to the county attorney's office. Subject line: pattern of fraud and assault within private HOA jurisdiction. For a minute, I sat staring at the send confirmation. Relief felt strange, cold, almost hollow. Then headlights swept across my window. I peeked through the blinds. Patricia's SUV idled across the street, her silhouette still. The blue glow from my porch light painted her windshield an eerie color, like she was the one under interrogation. The engine revved once, low and deliberate, before she drove off. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You've made a serious mistake, Mr. Miles." I didn't reply. I saved the message, screenshot, timestamp, everything, because this wasn't about one ramp or one rule anymore. It was about power, and I'd just pulled the pin from under hers. The morning after Patricia's message, I found a letter nailed, literally nailed, to my front door. The paper curled under the humidity. Splinters of cedar caught in the corners. Across the top, bold red stamp, board action pending. Inside was a single paragraph accusing me of cyber intrusion and unauthorized access to community systems. It was dated the night before I sent my report. She was preempting me, burying the truth under official ink. My wife watched from the hallway. Her robe hung loose around her belly, her eyes swollen from another sleepless night. "She's escalating," she said. "That's what people do when they're cornered." "And what do cornered people do, Aaron?" "They fight." I ripped the letter down. The nail left a clean hole in the wood, right beside the blue porch light's reflection. I spent the rest of the morning cataloging files. My laptop fan whirred like a storm drain. I recorded screen captures of the timestamp discrepancies, printed hard copies, sealed them in waterproof envelopes. Evidence had to survive what came next. At noon, a white SUV with the HOA emblem rolled to a stop outside. 2 volunteers stepped out wearing polos that read, "Compliance Team, Patricia's New Army." One held a camera, the other a clipboard. "Mr. Miles," the tall one said, "we've received reports of unsafe construction." "You mean the ramp? The one that passed state inspection?" "We'll need to photograph it. You'll need a warrant. This is private property under HOA jurisdiction." "Then call the sheriff." They hesitated. The shorter man checked his phone, nodded once, and they left. No argument, no warning, just a silent record of defiance for their next meeting. By evening, my inbox flooded. Formal notices, violation alerts, even a cease and desist template accusing me of harassment by email. Patricia was flooding the channel, drowning my real claims under paperwork. I called Ben again. Voicemail, left a message anyway. "They're falsifying evidence now," I said. "I've got patterns of payments, timestamps, and now witness intimidation. Call me back." No response. At dusk, I saw a shape move near the mailbox. When I stepped outside, Ben was there, cap pulled low, hands buried in his jacket. He looked thinner, eyes ringed. "You shouldn't talk to me," he said. "You came here. Because I saw what they filed. They're lying. I know, I saw the edits." "Then testify." He shook his head. The porch light turned his face pale blue. "They've got a lawyer now. HOA insurance pays her retainer. I can't go up against that." "You don't have to go up alone. I've filed with the county attorney. If they subpoena, you'll have protection." "That's assuming it gets that far." He took out a flash drive, small and silver, and pressed it into my hand. "Minutes from the closed sessions," he said. "You didn't get this from me. What's on it?" "Approvals Patricia never reported. Expenses marked executive privilege." "You're sure it's legit?" "It's her voice on the recordings." A dog barked down the block. Ben flinched, eyes darting. He stepped back into the shadow of the hedge. "They're watching me," he whispered. "They'll know I helped. Then let me use it before they can." He nodded once, shoulders tight. When he turned to leave, his hand trembled against the fence latch. The sound of the metal clicking shut felt final, like a gavel. Inside, I locked the door and slid the flash drive into my laptop. The files opened one by one. Audio, spreadsheets, scans of handwritten notes. Then came a recording, Patricia's voice, crisp and cold. "We'll push him until he breaks. If he sues, we'll settle on terms that silence him. We need a deterrent." I stopped breathing. I played it again, then again, letting every word carve itself into memory. That was intent, proof of coordinated harassment, maybe even conspiracy. I saved 3 encrypted copies and emailed one to the county attorney's office with the subject line, "Evidence, Audio Confession." For the first time in weeks, I let myself smile. Small, tired, but real. I didn't know yet that Patricia had friends in local government, that the next move she'd make would come from the very people I was counting on. The county attorney's office called 2 days later. The voice on the line was polite, careful. "Mr. Miles, this is Assistant Prosecutor Kellerman. We've reviewed your submission. And, at this time, we're declining to pursue criminal charges. It falls under civil jurisdiction. She tased my wife. That's a separate matter with local law enforcement, who already passed it back to the county. Then you'll need private counsel. Paperwork bouncing between agencies. Patricia's real defense." After the call, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of letters, photographs, and printed transcripts that had become my life. My wife shuffled in, hair tied back, moving slow. "What did they say?" "They said it's not their problem." "So what happens now?" "Now I make it theirs." I spent the afternoon calling law offices until one finally answered, Lydia Nguyen, civil rights attorney. Her voice carried the calm of someone who'd seen too many of these cases. "Send me everything," she said. "If it's as you describe, we can escalate through federal channels." Federal? Civil rights violation under color of authority. Even private HOAs can't impersonate law enforcement. That night, I packaged everything into a secure drive and couriered it. For the first time, I felt like there was traction. Then the retaliation started. The next morning, a crew arrived unannounced and fenced off our driveway with orange tape. A sign read, "Unsafe structure, condemned pending review." I stepped out in disbelief. "Who approved this?" I asked the man with the clipboard. "Order came from the HOA office." "You can't just—" "Sir, back up. We're following Directive 8C. Directive 8C didn't exist. I'd memorized every clause of the bylaws. Patricia had invented a rule overnight. When I called the number listed, her assistant answered. "Ms. Crow isn't available. Tell her this is illegal." "Noted." I hung up and paced the porch, fists clenched, trying to calm my pulse. My wife opened the door halfway. "Aaron, come inside. They're blocking the hospital route. Please, for the baby." Her voice cracked on the last word. I stepped back, heart pounding. The blue porch light buzzed above, flickering like it could sense the tension. Later that evening, Lydia called. "I received the evidence," she said. "It's strong, but we'll need corroboration. Anyone else on record?" "A neighbor named Ben Harlan, code enforcement." "Will he testify?" "He's scared." "Then get him to talk, even off the record. I'll handle the rest." When I hung up, I noticed an envelope slipped under the door, hand-delivered. Inside, a notice of community hearing scheduled for Friday. Topic: termination of residency. Aaron and Emily Miles. Eviction, disguised as policy enforcement. I called Ben again. This time, he answered. His voice was a whisper. "I shouldn't be talking." "They're evicting us." "I know. You gave me that flash drive. It's evidence. You weren't supposed to use it yet. Ben, they're condemning the ramp. We can't even drive to the hospital. If I testify, I lose my job. If you don't, she wins." Silence stretched. I could hear wind on his end, the faint whistle through siding gaps. Finally, he said, "There's something you don't know. The sheriff's sister is on Patricia's board. That's why no one's moving." "You're telling me it's rigged?" "I'm telling you to watch your back." He hung up. That night, I saw headlights sweep across the living room wall. A vehicle slowed outside, black SUV, no markings. It idled for a minute, then drove off. My wife was asleep on the couch, one hand over her stomach. I pulled a chair to the window and sat there until sunrise, the blue porch, light flickering through the glass. The next morning, Lydia called again. "The media's the next step," she said. "Public exposure. Once it's out, they can't hide behind policy." "You think they'll listen?" "They always do when the cameras roll." Her confidence steadied me. It wasn't just about proving Patricia's fraud anymore. It was about showing the world what happens when power hides behind paperwork. The hearing was 3 days away. If they wanted a show, I'd give them one. The hearing notice said, Friday 7 p.m., Willow Creek Community Hall. The kind of place where the carpet smelled of disinfectant and old coffee, where every folding chair squeaked like it was protesting the whole process. All week I prepared like a soldier cleaning a rifle. I printed evidence binders, 3 copies, mine, Lydia's, and one for the county observer Lydia had managed to get appointed. The binders felt heavier than they should have, thick with truth. On Thursday night, Ben finally came back. He looked exhausted, jacket hanging off one shoulder. His eyes darted across the street before he stepped inside. "You're being set up," he said immediately. "Already knew that." "No, you don't." He placed a manila envelope on my table. "They're fabricating new minutes for Friday. It says the board voted unanimously to suspend your membership for aggressive conduct." "Unanimous?" "Including mine," he said quietly. He couldn't meet my eyes. His hands were shaking as he rubbed them together. I told her I'd abstain. She said abstention equals consent. "You know that's not true." "I know," he said. "But she controls the record. I'm sorry." He started to leave, then stopped at the door. "There's something else." "What?" "The taser she used. It's listed under community safety inventory. If you can prove misuse of equipment purchased with resident dues, that's felony misappropriation. The state will have to act. How do I prove it? Form 14B, Equipment Accountability Sheet. Only one person keeps those, Patricia's treasurer. Then I'll get it." Ben hesitated, the porch light cutting half his face in blue. "She keeps backups in the office file cabinet, bottom drawer. I can distract her for 5 minutes tomorrow if you're sure." "You'd do that?" He swallowed hard. I have to make this right. When he left, I saw his hands trembling as he reached for the gate. He didn't wave. The next afternoon, the sky pressed heavy and gray, the air wet like a storm thinking about breaking. At exactly 5, I parked a block away from the HOA office, a converted bungalow with too many locks. Ben was already there, standing outside pretending to take meter readings. He caught my eye, nodded once, then knocked on the office door. Patricia opened it, clipboard in hand, face tight. I slipped around the side through the utility gate as she led him inside. The file cabinet was where he'd said. Metal, labeled Finance, Private. My pulse thundered. I tugged the drawer. Locked. I pulled a screwdriver from my jacket pocket, wedged, twisted. The lock popped like a knuckle. Inside, receipts, balance sheets, and one thin folder labeled Safety Inventory. I flipped through until I found it. Form 14B, Asset Assignment Log. 3 tasers listed, each signed out by Patricia herself. One marked Incident W14, Resident Interaction. Proof. I pulled out my phone, snapped photos, and emailed them to Lydia immediately. Then I heard it, Patricia's voice, closer now. Ben, why are you in my office? Water meter check, he said, voice too light. The meters are city property. Routine maintenance. Routine? At 5 in the evening? I stuffed the folder back, eased the drawer closed, and slipped toward the rear door. The hinges squealed just enough to draw attention. Who's back there? Patricia snapped. I bolted through the alley, heart hammering, gravel crunching under boots. I didn't stop until I hit the main road, lungs burning. My phone buzzed, a message from Lydia. Got the photos? This changes everything. State investigators can't ignore this. Get ready. When I got home, my wife was pacing the living room. Where were you? Getting us leverage. Leverage? Proof that she used HOA funds for weapons. Lydia's taking it to the Attorney General. She stared at me, then laughed once, a broken sound between relief and disbelief. You actually did it. Outside, thunder rolled over the rooftops. Rain started to fall, slow, deliberate drops that darkened the porch boards. The blue light shimmered through it like a beacon. I checked my phone again. One new voicemail. Ben's voice, breathless. She knows. She saw your truck on the camera feed. I'm sorry, Aaron. I tried. The message cut off with a click. I sank onto the couch, soaked from the rain, the flash drive and binder beside me. Everything was in motion now, too big for Patricia to bury, too real to ignore. Tomorrow night was the hearing. The storm outside was just rehearsal. Friday came like a loaded gun. The sky was the color of steel, and the air carried that sharp scent right before a storm breaks. Every window in Willow Creek reflected the same gray anticipation. The HOA hearing was at 7, but by 5, cars were already lining the cul-de-sac, neighbors pretending to arrive casually, clutching their folded letters like shields. I wore my work boots, jeans, and the same flannel I'd worn the day Patricia tased my wife. It wasn't superstition. It was armor. My wife sat on the couch, one hand on her belly. Promise me you won't lose it, she said. I'll keep calm. No matter what she says. I've got proof now. That's all that matters. She nodded, eyes wet. Then go win it. The community hall smelled of lemon cleaner and burnt coffee. Folding chairs faced a long plastic table where Patricia sat in the center, flanked by 2 board members, Mr. Dawes and a woman I didn't recognize. Behind them, a small camera on a tripod blinked red. Recording for official minutes. Ben wasn't there. Patricia smiled when she saw me, the kind of smile that says, I've already written your ending. Mr. Miles, she said into the microphone, thank you for attending. Tonight we'll review your repeated violations, hostile behavior, and defamatory statements. And your misuse of funds, I said. Gasps fluttered through the rows. She tilted her head, unbothered. Accusations without evidence waste everyone's time. Then let's not waste it. I set my binder on the table, open to the printed photos of Form de Faucine B. Patricia's expression didn't flicker, but Dawes leaned closer, squinting. These are internal records, she said. Public funds, I countered. Resident dues paid for those tasers. Your own signature assigned one during what you called resident interaction, up to 14. That's the night you tased my wife. The room went still, except for the rain tapping against the roof. "That's enough," Patricia said sharply. "No," I said. "This community deserves to hear what you've been hiding. The state will hear it too. My attorney already sent these to the Attorney General's office." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back whispered, "Is that true?" Patricia glanced at the blinking camera, then pressed a button under the table. The red light went dark. "This proceeding is now off the record," she said. "Of course it is," I muttered. She leaned forward, voice low. "You think you can embarrass me with half-truths and forged screenshots? They're your files. You broke into private property. I exposed a crime." Her hand twitched toward the taser holster at her belt, but she caught herself, resting it flat on the table instead. "This meeting is adjourned," she announced. "Security will escort Mr. Miles out." No one moved. The door at the back opened. Ben stepped inside, rain dripping from his jacket, face pale but determined. He held a folder to his chest. "Before you do that," he said, voice shaking, "I have something to say." Patricia froze. "Mr. Harlan, this is a closed hearing." "Not when fraud's involved." He walked to the table, every step echoing in the room. His hands trembled as he opened the folder. "These are the real minutes from last month's meeting," he said. "The ones before you edited them. They show that no vote ever approved taser purchases or enforcement actions." "You're lying," Patricia snapped. "Then sue me too," Ben said. "But these pages have your voice transcribed, and the original timestamps." The board members leaned in, whispering to each other. The crowd murmured, louder. Patricia's jaw locked, pulse visible in her temple. "You've just ended your career," she said to him. "Maybe," he said, "but at least I can look my daughter in the eye." The storm outside cracked open. Thunder rolled through the hall like applause. I turned to the neighbors behind me, people who'd watched from behind blinds for months. "You all heard that?" I said. "She used weapons bought with our money. She forged votes. She attacked my wife." A woman in the back stood up. "Is that true, Patricia?" Patricia didn't answer. Lydia, my attorney, stepped forward from the side aisle, quietly, professionally. I hadn't even seen her arrive. "It's all true," she said, lifting a printed letter. "The state's opened an investigation. As of this morning, Ms. Crow is under review for financial misconduct and criminal assault." The room erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping, thunder roaring outside. Patricia's face went blank, all her composure bleeding away. I looked at Ben. He gave a small nod, half fear, half relief. The tremor in his hands was gone. The blue porch light was miles away, but I imagined it burning through the rain, steady and defiant. Tomorrow, everything would change. By morning, Willow Creek felt like a neighborhood waking from a bad dream. Cars moved slower, blinds hung open, and the HOA bulletin board was stripped bare. Someone had torn Patricia's official announcements down overnight. Rainwater bled the red ink into pink streaks along the curb. I brewed coffee while the house stayed unnervingly quiet. My wife dozed on the couch, her belly rising and falling under a blanket. Every few minutes, I checked her breathing, still half expecting flashing lights and pounding fists at the door. But there were none, just calm. Then my phone buzzed, a voicemail from Ben. "They came to my office," his voice said, hushed and tired. "HR suspended me pending investigation. But I don't regret it. The AG's office called me this morning. They've subpoenaed Patricia's records. They said it might classify as fraud and aggravated assault. You did it, man." I didn't answer right away. Relief is strange when you've lived on adrenaline. It doesn't feel like peace. It feels like disbelief. Outside, neighbors who hadn't spoken to me in months suddenly waved. One man across the street even crossed over, holding a folded newspaper. "You see this?" he asked, handing it to me. "Local HOA president under state investigation. Misuse of funds, alleged assault." The photo showed Patricia walking out of the community hall, jacket pulled over her face. "Guess we were living under a little dictatorship," he said. "Guess so." He hesitated, then nodded toward the ramp. "For what it's worth, that light looks good, man." The blue bulb flickered faintly in the sunlight. For the first time, it didn't look like rebellion. It looked like memory. Around noon, Lydia called. "You saw the papers?" "Yeah." "It's moving fast. State investigators want interviews next week. Ben's already on the record. They'll reach out to your wife, too. She's due any day. We'll keep it brief." The judge reviewing the case already used the phrase domestic terrorism. It's not official yet, but it's in the notes. The words sank in slowly. Domestic terrorism. It sounded surreal, like a documentary title, not something that happened in a suburban driveway. Aaron, Lydia continued, they want to set precedent. HOA abuse cases rarely get this far. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. Yeah, I said softly. I figured that out. After the call, I stepped outside. The humidity had broken, replaced by a clean breeze that carried the smell of rain-soaked mulch and asphalt. Across the street, Patricia's house was dark. A "for sale" sign leaned crooked in her yard, half shoved into the soil. The windows were bare, no blinds, no movement. For someone obsessed with order, her silence was the loudest thing on the block. Ben walked up a few minutes later, sleeves rolled to his elbows, a small bandage on his wrist. You okay? I asked. Been better. Got a lawyer, though. Lydia gave me a referral. They can't keep you suspended. They can try, but at least the truth's out. He handed me a flash drive. Copy of everything I gave the state. Keep it safe. You didn't have to. I know, but I needed to. He looked at the blue light, squinting against the glare. You ever gonna turn that off? Not a chance. Good, he said. It's kind of the only honest thing left in this neighborhood. We stood there for a moment, silent, until a delivery van rolled by. A man in a county jacket stepped out and posted a notice on the community bulletin board. The paper flapped in the breeze. Temporary receivership, Willow Creek, HOA, under state audit. Ben smiled faintly. Never thought I'd see the day. That night, I sat with my wife on the porch. The air was cooler, the crickets louder, the kind of stillness you only notice after chaos. It's really over, isn't it? She said. Not yet, I said. But it's close. I want our daughter to grow up somewhere better. She will, I said. Because now people are watching. Lightning flickered far off, just enough to light the outline of the cul-de-sac. The blue porch light glowed steady beside it, a beacon, not a warning. My wife leaned against my shoulder, whispering, You think they'll learn something from this? I looked at the dark house across the street and said, If they don't, the next one will. The subpoena came Monday morning, sealed in heavy manila, the state crest embossed like a scar. My name on one line, Patricia's on the next. Beneath it, formal hearing, Office of the Attorney General, Austin, Texas. The date, 2 weeks away. For days the neighborhood buzzed like a beehive disturbed. Cars slowed by our house. A few neighbors left casseroles on the porch, awkward peace offerings for months of silence. Others just stared from a distance, uncertain if I was the villain or the man who'd broken the spell. Ben texted every day. They're digging deep. She's fighting back. Lydia prepped me through phone calls, her tone sharp but calm. Stay factual. No emotion unless you describe the taser. Let that moment do the talking. And Patricia? She'll deny everything, but we have her voice on record, her signature on the purchase forms, and the state audit confirms unreported expenditures. So we're ready? We're past ready. At night, I'd walk the block alone. Without Patricia's security lights, the cul-de-sac was darker, quieter. The blue porch light cast a long reflection across the wet pavement, a single unbroken line that led right back to our front steps. My wife's contractions had started to come and go, early tremors, nothing steady yet. Each time, she'd smile through the pain and say, Just nerves. But I could see fear in her eyes. We both remembered that first night too vividly. On Thursday, a letter appeared in my mailbox with no return address. You've made a spectacle of yourself. There are always consequences. No signature, but I knew the cadence. It was Patricia's style, that bureaucratic rhythm of threat wrapped in civility. I filed it with the rest. Friday dawned heavy and hot. The hearing was set in a municipal building downtown, a box of concrete and glass that smelled like old air conditioning and formality. Lydia met me on the steps, binder tucked under her arm. You ready? As I'll ever be. Good, because today isn't just about you, it's about precedent. Inside, the courtroom hummed with reporters and officials. Patricia sat across the aisle, hair pulled tight, expression carved from ice. No clipboard this time, just a defense attorney whispering in her ear. The judge entered, a tall man with silver hair and the kind of presence that silences a room. We're here to examine allegations of financial fraud, forgery, and unlawful use of force under the guise of HOA enforcement, he began. Mr. Miles, please describe the incident. My throat was dry, but the words came. I told them everything. The blue light, the warnings, the ramp, the night she blocked our truck, my wife's scream, the smell of ozone, the taser crack, the silence that followed. When I finished, the judge's jaw was tight. Ms. Crow, he said, turning to Patricia, do you contest the audio evidence? Those recordings were illegally obtained, she said. Noted, he said, but admissible. She stared at me then, not like an enemy, but like someone realizing their reflection had finally stopped lying. Lydia laid out the paper trail next, the purchases, the forged minutes, the off-book reimbursements. Every sheet felt like a nail sealing a coffin. When it was over, the judge leaned back, hands folded. This case isn't just about money, he said slowly. It's about authority without accountability. The misuse of civilian power for intimidation falls under our state's definition of domestic terrorism. A ripple went through the room. Reporters shifted forward. Patricia's lawyer whispered frantically, but the damage was done. Effective immediately, the judge continued, Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association is suspended under emergency receivership pending criminal review. Ms. Crow, you will surrender all HOA property, including enforcement equipment, to state custody. Patricia's face drained of color. She didn't look at me when officers approached. She just sat there, jaw clenched, the weight of order finally crushing its architect. Outside, the cameras swarmed. Lydia guided me through them like a shield. No statements, she said. Let the ruling speak for itself. But as I reached the steps, one reporter shouted, Mr. Miles, what will you do now that you've won? I looked out across the crowd, thought of my wife at home, thought of Ben rebuilding his life, thought of that blue light still burning on our porch. Winning's not the point, I said. Making sure no one else has to fight like this is. Flashbulbs popped, thunder without the storm. The moment I stepped off the courthouse steps, my phone buzzed, a text from my wife. It's time, contractions 5 minutes apart. I smiled, the weight of months falling away. Justice was done. Now it was time for life to begin. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and rain. Storm clouds still pressed low outside, the same storm that had shadowed Willow Creek for weeks. But now it felt like something washing clean instead of closing in. I parked crooked near the emergency entrance, sprinted inside with a folder of paperwork still under my arm. Habit. Erin, my wife called from the wheelchair as a nurse guided her down the hall. Right here, babe. She gripped my hand, knuckles pale. She's coming fast. The hallway lights blurred into streaks of white. Machines beeped, voices echoed. Everything felt surreal, like the world was finally spinning the right direction after months stuck in reverse. While doctors prepped the room, I sat outside on a vinyl chair, the same binder of evidence on my lap. Not because I needed it, but because it reminded me what we'd survived. Patricia's name, the blue light photos, the forged signatures, it all felt like another lifetime. Ben arrived 10 minutes later, out of breath, holding 2 coffees. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, ID badge clipped to his belt again. They reinstated me this morning, he said, grinning. City cleared my name. Guess honesty still counts for something. You made it, I said. Wouldn't miss this. Heard you're about to become a dad. He looked down the hall toward the delivery room window. Funny thing, he said softly, the new interim board called me. They want help rewriting the HOA bylaws. You believe that? You should do it. Yeah, he said. Maybe start with one that says people come before rules. The nurse waved me inside. My wife's voice rose, strained, determined. I dropped the binder on the chair and ran in. It was chaos and rhythm all at once. Monitors humming, nurses moving like choreography. She squeezed my hand until I thought bones might break. Almost there, the doctor said. I can't. You can. Look at me, I said. You've already lived through worse. Then, in a moment that cut through every nightmare we'd endured, our daughter's cry filled the room. Thin, wild, alive. Everything stopped. They placed her on my wife's chest, and for a second the world shrank to that small sound, and the warmth of her tiny fingers curling around mine. I laughed, quiet at first, then louder, freer than I'd ever laughed before. The nurse smiled. What's her name? Grace, my wife whispered, because that's what saved us. Later, when the doctor left and the monitors quieted, Ben peeked in. She's beautiful, he said. Thanks for being here. I wanted to tell you something, he said. News broke an hour ago. Patricia pled guilty to falsifying records and unlawful use of force. Sentence pending. Already? Judge called it a precedent for community accountability. He used your case in the statement. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Justice had moved from paperwork to principle. Ben rested a hand on my shoulder. They're calling it the Miles decision online. HOA forums are losing their minds. Never thought I'd be famous for surviving bureaucracy. You earned it. He left quietly. I stayed by my wife and daughter, listening to the rain against the glass. It sounded like applause. Around midnight, Lydia texted a photo, screenshot of the court's public release. State vies, Crow. Ruling, misuse of authority under color of office, defined as domestic terrorism, civil context. It was done. The phrase that had felt surreal in the courtroom was now law. I went to the window. Down in the parking lot, the blue porch light from our truck's dash reflection glowed faintly on the wet pavement, like the one waiting at home. For once, the neighborhood felt far away. No meetings, no fines, no fear. Just peace and possibility. My wife stirred. She's asleep, she murmured. Good, I said. She earned it. I kissed her forehead, then the baby's. Outside, thunder rolled one last time, fading into silence. Justice had its noise. Peace had its quiet. Tomorrow, I'd take them home, back to that porch where the blue light still burned. Not as defiance, but as a promise. When we brought Grace home, the neighborhood felt different, not quieter, honest. The sound of sprinklers and wind through the oaks didn't carry that old edge of surveillance anymore. Driveways were imperfect again. Kids' bikes lay tipped on lawns and no one rushed to correct it. The HOA sign by the entrance still stood, but someone had spray-painted over the logo in soft blue. My wife laughed when she saw it. Guess the revolution's already started, she said. One fence repaint at a time, I told her. Ben met us at the curb, waving from his porch. The new interim board had appointed him as compliance director, though now the word compliance meant helping people, not cornering them. He helped me unload the car seat, careful as if Grace were made of glass. You realize, he said, the AG's office used your case in a training video. They're calling it Community Oversight Reform. That's a mouthful. They also refunded everyone's fines from Patricia's term, even for the grass height violations. Miracles happen. He looked at the blue porch light glowing against the afternoon sun. You keeping it? Always. It started all this. It's my brother's light, and now hers too. Grace stirred, tiny fingers gripping the air. The light reflected in her eyes like two small sparks. Inside, the house still smelled faintly of printer ink and stress, but it was ours again. The letters on the fridge were gone. I'd painted over the nail hole where Patricia had posted her threats. My wife stood by the window, rocking Grace, humming something soft. For the first time, I opened the binder one last time, not to add evidence, but to close it. Pages full of signatures, timestamps, and fear. I slipped in one final photo, our family standing under the blue light, smiling. Then I sealed it and wrote across the cover, "Keep for Grace." I walked it out to the garage, set it on the top shelf beside my old army duffel. Some stories aren't meant to be reopened, only remembered. That evening, the new board held its first open-door meeting on the cul-de-sac. Folding chairs, lemonade, laughter. Lydia joined via speakerphone to explain the new bylaws. Transparent budgets, recorded meetings, zero tolerance for intimidation. Every line sounded like oxygen. Ben gestured for me to say something. I didn't prepare a speech, but the words came anyway. You all know what happened here, I began. You watched it. You lived it. What matters now isn't that one person fell. It's that we all finally stood up. A neighborhood's not rules and fences. It's people. If you forget that, you end up living in fear of your own front porch. Applause rose, small but real. Lydia's voice crackled through the phone. Well said, Mr. Miles. Afterward, the sun dipped low, washing the street in amber light. My wife joined me with Grace bundled in her arms. We stood under the porch as the first fireflies blinked in the yard. The blue bulb glowed brighter as the sky darkened, steady, unwavering. She leaned against me. You ever think about what might have happened if we'd moved? Sometimes, I said. But then we wouldn't be here to see this. You think she'll remember any of it? She'll remember what we teach her, that standing up costs something, but silence costs more. Ben called from across the street, holding up his phone. They published it, he read aloud. State Venus Crow establishes new oversight standards for private residential associations. The crowd cheered. Somewhere down the block, someone turned on their own porch light, blue, then another, and another. Soon the street shimmered with them, one after another, a quiet constellation of defiance and hope. I looked at Grace, her eyes wide under the soft glow, and whispered, "This is for you." The wind shifted, carrying the faint smell of fresh rain, the same scent from that first night, now washed clean of fear. We stood there until the crickets took over the silence. The neighborhood was no longer perfect, and that was the point. Because peace doesn't come from control. It comes from finally letting people breathe. What would you do if the rules meant hurting someone you loved? Think about it. Speak up when it matters. And if you want more stories where ordinary people stand against power, stay close and subscribe.